Well, I got started with Marvel. I had done a movie with an editor named Paul Rubel. We had done a movie together with Michael Mann. It was called Public Enemies with Johnny Depp playing John Dillinger.
Yes.
And we worked together on that movie. And then after that film, Paul went off and worked on Thor, the first Thor film at Marvel. And he said, "Hey, I'm doing this movie at Marvel. It's really fun. They're a great group of people. I'm going to do potentially going to do another movie with them. And if would you be interested in being an additional editor with me and helping me out?" And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds fun. I'd love to do that." So he sort of suggested the idea to me, and so I decided to set up a meeting. I wanted to go in and meet the Marvel team and see who they were and like get to know them. And when I went in to meet them, they were in need of an editor for the first Captain America movie. They had just finished shooting and they needed another editor to come on. And I said, they offered me a chance to meet Joe Johnston, who had directed that film. And I said, "Are you kidding? That's Joe Johnston." I mean, he basically drew Star Wars. He was like the conceptual artist behind, the first Star Wars film. And he really was a pioneer in visual effects. Also a great director in his own right. Has made some incredible movies. I was a huge fan. I was like, I can meet Joe Johnston. And then I got the job. So I couldn't believe it. It was insane. And I started like the next day. And I kind of was there for 8 years. After that, it was very lucky, and I was in the right place at the right time and had a lot of good friends who helped me in the door there. But it turned out to be something that was really fun and rewarding. Marcus and McFeely, the writers, started working on that script while we were still working on Civil War, and the ideas and the layout of that script sort of began. I think that started almost with Joss on Avengers 1, where some of those ideas started coming together about how that sequence might end. And I think watching that develop, watching Joss and Kevin, and then the Russos and Kevin develop those ideas over the years was really exciting and fun. Just to watch the ideas and be a fly on the wall, but also get a chance to contribute once in a while. And I think that each movie in itself sort of changed the path we were on. And then by the time we got to Infinity War and EndGame, we really had those two movies kind of mapped out. So when I read those initially, even though they changed a lot from the very first script that I read, the basic ideas of where we'd start, how the first movie would end, and how the second movie would end were in place. So we knew those were big story points. We knew where we were going to go. We didn't always know what was going to happen in between in terms of action or plot. That evolved over the course of the process, but we had big destinations we were headed. We knew what was going to happen with Widow and Captain America and with Iron Man, and we kind of knew those original 6 Avengers would have a curtain on this one. So that was what we were always heading for, and it's pretty exciting to be able to build it that way, because we really could plant ideas and work their character arcs over 2 movies, which was fun. One of the things we had to do on these movies, because we had so much material coming in, we would assemble together a version of the movie with whatever we had. So if we had, sometimes it's previs, which is like animated, really like pretty detailed animations. They look like cartoons or video games, and you can kind of like follow the action. We have that. We have sometimes just storyboards, which are just sketches of ideas for shots. Then we also have script, obviously just typed words on the screen, and then other times we have concept art, which is paintings of just really big moments in the movie. So what we would take is to pull all that into the Avid, which is the computer program we used to edit with, take it into the computer and then put it where it belongs in the movie, add music and sound or a dialogue. We just put the dialogue up as subtitles. And then that way we could get kind of like watch, if we ever had some new idea, we just put it into the timeline and start building the movie. And that's where you build the movie. And I do that on every movie now. Just basically it's the way to build a movie. You kind of keep track of everything by including even rough drafts of things in your cut, so you don't forget about good ideas. Because very often you come up with these cool ideas and they can get forgotten. You can be like, oh, we should have done that. We had a great idea about that. We forgot. But if it's always there and you're watching the movie and it's reminding you, oh, this is coming up. We have this moment, So we do that. Sometimes the stunt performers will actually act out their stunt plan before we shoot a fight. So I'll take that and put that in the Avid. So everything that we collect as we're going along, just for planning, we put into the system. And then we shoot it for real, it gets replaced with the real stuff. Well, there were really two reshoots for EndGame. We shot most of it when we were shooting Infinity War, we were shooting EndGame at the same time. That was mostly during 2017. And then we wrapped in January of 2018, finished editing Infinity War. And then we edited we edited May, June, July, August, we edited EndGame and got it into pretty good shape and made a list of what we needed. And one of the things we hadn't really shot, because we weren't sure how it was going to play, was the end battle. So we had shot the end of the movie where Tony dies, and we had shot this stuff with his funeral, and we had shot Thor and the Guardians and all that stuff at the very end of the film. And we had shot the moment where Hulk snaps and the compound gets blasted by Thanos. But from the time the compound gets blasted until Tony snaps his fingers, that whole section was something that, for the most part, we went back and shot that in September and October of 2018. So we went back to Atlanta, shot that whole sequence, matched in some of the stuff we had shot previously. And that means everything, people coming out of the portals, all those, that whole sequence was done pretty much in 2 months during 2018. And then we went back again, we edited that into the movie, tested it, previewed it, got it up to speed, and then in January of 2019, we did another few days of reshooting, and that was Tony snapping his fingers, saying the final line. It was, I believe we shot a scene with Ant-Man and Rhodey when Rhodey's complaining about not understanding time travel, and the Hulk is saying, he's trying to explain it to him, and Rhodey's listing off all the time travel movies he's seen. Like, that was the scene we did. We shot that because we had that idea about him listing those movies. That was something we came up with while we were editing, and we thought, this is so awesome, we have to shoot it. So we did that as part of our January reshoot.
Time doesn't work that way. Changing the past doesn't change the future.
Look, we go back, we get the stones before Thanos gets them. Thanos doesn't have the stones. Problem solved.
Bingo.
That's not how it works.
Well, that's what I heard.
Wait, but who? Who told you that?
Star Trek, Terminator, Time Cop, Time After Time.
Quantum Leap.
Wrinkle in Time, Somewhere in Time.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Hot Tub Time Machine. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Basically any movie that deals with time travel.
Die Hard.
We also shot the Black Widow's. We reshot Black Widow's scene when she goes over the cliff at Vormir, because we had a new idea for a scene between her and Hawkeye that Marcus and McFeely wrote that was just beautiful, and we had to do it. It was something we came up with while we were editing and thought, we have to try to get this, and we were able to. And so we changed a lot of the movie, and that stuff was all done at the last minute, but we had thought about it, really kind of planned it out very carefully, because there are ideas that evolve when you're editing a movie this big. There's so many characters, and you keep coming up with ideas. Even if you're done shooting, you still go, well, wait a minute, this would be better. We just figured this out. Yes, in an earlier draft, Thanos came to Vormir, and it was going to make a lot more sense for her character arc to not have it be that battle scene. We shot it, and it was just not. It wasn't in the tone of the movie became really about characters, and the plot with Thanos, the time travel plot, all that stuff, that mattered, but it mattered much more in the third act than it did in the second. So during the second act, we were dealing with Thor and his mother. We were dealing with Tony and his father. We were dealing with Cap seeing Peggy. We were dealing with all of these moments, these character moments, and we thought, well, Black Widow deserves a character moment like that as well. She and Hawkeye don't just get thrown into some, plot battle scene. They need their emotional arc to be complete. And the only way that can work is for them to relate to each other as characters the way they have since Avengers, the first Avengers movie. We really, know that they are bound together and they have a great relationship in Age of Ultron. So it's really important, or was really important for us to make sure that Widow's arc was a really strong one. I'd love to take credit for it, but I think, I don't even remember. We have everybody's working together all the time. But I do remember one of the things we did come up with, that we were working on the end of the film with Josh Brolin, and we thought, remember we were talking, we felt like Thanos had to say something at the end. and what could he say? And when we figured out he would say, "I am inevitable," because he had said that earlier in the film twice, and then he would say it another time at the end and realize the audience would know that he was maybe not correct at that point. That's when we thought, oh, that's a perfect thing for Tony to answer with "I am Iron Man." So it basically grew out of our trying to make that scene work between the two of them, and just it was a sort of a source of discovery. When you're making a film, you very often you'll rewrite and change things based on how the story's evolved or how the actors are blocked on set. So being open to new ideas when you're working with the actors, I think, is a huge important thing for any filmmaker to keep in mind, because ideas like that evolve from working with actors and directors and talking about it, and editors. So being collaborative, being open to ideas, I think is really cool, because you can come up with some really awesome ideas. It's also important to be, to have a plan and understand what the story is you want to tell. And that idea just happened to fit in the story we wanted to tell. I'm very proud of that moment. I love that moment in the movie, and the scene that follows, I think, is one of the best things we've done, with Tony and Pepper and Peter when Tony dies. That's really one of my favorite scenes in all the Marvel movies. I think it's very moving and really well done. I think Joe and Anthony did a great job directing that. We did a lot. We did a bunch of different ones. Robert did a series on set that day. We did, when we first shot, we shot it twice. The first time we did a series, sometimes he didn't say anything. He just looked at Thanos. Sometimes he said, jokes. Sometimes he even, used some bad language. There was a lot of different ones. And we tried a few of them with an audience. We tested a couple of different versions. But at the end of the day, when we had the idea to do the Iron Man line, we went back and got that because we didn't have that version. And so that was something we thought of, and we went back and redid it. And it allowed us to help customize his performance for that moment. I just remember shooting that on the day. I was there when we shot that, and it was you could hear a pin drop. Everybody on the crew was just watching him do that last moment, and it was beautiful. One of the most beautiful things. He just did a terrific, just amazing piece of acting there.
I am
As the genre evolved and became more and more successful financially, people were going to the movies, they were talking about them and writing about them on the internet. So I think what happened was that the genre got really complex. Like, you could start to do really more complex storytelling. It didn't have to just be a repeating pattern of the same storytelling that we would do over and over again. So the idea was to stretch a little bit and to merge it with other genres. And I think that was the real thing that Kevin came up with that really opened up superhero movies to a larger audience, was that they're superhero movies, but now we've also incorporated elements of, say, a political thriller like in Winter Soldier, or we've incorporated elements of surrealism like in Doctor Strange. There's a comedy like Ant-Man. There's a science fiction fantasy picture like Guardians of the Galaxy. These are like taking science fiction fantasy, fusing it with superhero, making another sort of subgenre, or taking a political thriller or an action movie and turning it into a Captain America movie, which also has a superhero at its center. But I think that's the exciting part, was fusing those genres. And then the other thing that's always interesting to me is superhero movies are popular for a reason. I think that the culture needed them and still needs them at times for, they can do different things. Politically they can be problematic, and politically they can be interesting. There's things that culture responds with in art that sort of an echo of what's going on and what people are anxious about. So, for instance, Captain America Winter Soldier is a movie about the government spying on citizens and deciding to preemptively take people out if they think they might be a threat in the future. Well, that's something that's been in the headlines, and it's actually something that we all face and deal with now with the internet. So there's definitely echoes of cultural anxiety that come out in the movies, and I think that's the other reason why the genre is so popular. It's a chance to really, deal with some of those fears and anxieties in a entertaining and a fantasy setting.
ensuring freedom around the globe.
I think that the only thing I can say is that's common to all of the Marvel movies is that the characters are taken seriously like real people, and the movies are made with real love for those characters. The movies are not ironic or trying to make fun of those characters. We treat our characters like real people in real movies, with like very legitimate. It's not we don't treat the characters as a joke. They're treated as real people, and we love them and care about them the way we would our family. So I think being honest and respectful of the characters and the story, that's common to every Marvel movie. Other than that, it's all over the place. I think, there's lots of different styles. I mean, look at Ragnarok, that's crazy, but it still respects the characters in the same way.